Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
how's it going, all you Minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of these graphic novels from Top Shelf Productions. So, stay tuned. Now, before going any further, I want to give a big thank you to the folks at Top Shelf Productions for sending us these graphic novels. Some of these books you may have seen on my channel before, and others are completely brand new to me, so I know you haven't seen them on my channel. So we are going to be doing an overview of each of these books. It'll be a quick overview since there's a lot to cover. And I do put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're just interested in one or two, or in case you don't want any kind of spoilers. But before I go any further, don't forget to smash that like button, please. I don't even know why I still do this. I know we have a graphic and everything, but just in case, maybe people like the hand. Anyway, timestamps, description of the video, like that button. Yeah, let's go ahead and start. Let's kick it off with Deep Breaths. Deep Breaths by Chris Gooch. And I'll be honest with you, we're going to be looking at a lot of Chris's work throughout this video. This wasn't the first one I read. I actually read, I'll be honest, Bottled and then Under Earth. And then I read this and then In Utero. Oh, and I promised I was going to be quick. I love that most of these top shelf books, they do have these French flaps right here. This one is a soft cover. And this one retails for $19.99. And it has 208 pages. It is printed in this thick matte paper. So what Deep Breaths is pretty much an anthology series. An anthology series of just different stories that you can tell here when it was originally published. And really short stories. There are a couple little long ones here. 2016. Using different color tones. And his art, by the time you get to In Utero, is so different. So we do have the story of Buddy in here, who's like a schoolboy that none of his classmates trust him because there was an incident that happened a while ago. And there's a monster involved. There's Wednesdays. And it's weird because some of them are not like... I can kind of see them being in the same kind of world, and I don't know if that's the way that he sees it. This is one to make him grow. It's a little boy that gets a power drill, ends up getting it for his birthday, and then uses it in horrible ways at his birthday party. I was like, man, this just turned into horror. There is one that's one of my favorites that is karaoke. It's a group of friends that are just karaokeing. Nothing happens. It's just slice of Uncanny Omar talk pretty one day. It's a slice of life, which is a nice little break from some of the crazy things in here. I don't want to talk about each of the books, but I want to give you a small glimpse as to what the art looks like. This one does have like older teen themes in here. I wanted to show you probably the longest one, and that is where is it? This is Emma. Curse You Skullface. I think it's after this one. There it is. Curse You Skullface is all about this action hero who has the face of a skull, and he ends up like trying to rescue this alien princess from another group of villains. That's it. There's like a sacrifice that's about to begin. There's these creatures. I love this one. This one's awesome, and it's one of the long ones in here. But this is a small taste as to what Chris Gooch is capable of. So you see like how much range he has. Your Wish. This one completely melted my heart. This is by Jeff Victor. It is a volume 1, or I see a 1 up there, so I'm hoping that there's more. This is one for all ages. Love stories like this where you're just thrown into this world. Again, the French flaps, it's a soft cover. This one does have thick glossy paper stock, and this one retails for $14.99, and it has 152 pages. So this is all about this young little girl. She's 10 years old. a little bit of a tomboy, and her name is Avery. And Avery is trying to impress people that are going to her dad's tiny little gas station in the middle of nowhere with magic tricks, because she believes in magic. And these people are jerks to this little kid. She's 10 years old. Anyway, she ends up finding a magic lamp. And with this magic lamp, after she dusts it, a genie comes around. But before the genie is this little companion. This is Griblet. And Griblet will become a companion when she finds out exactly who she is. And it's an adorable journey. Some people would call it an isekai. I just call it a journey to another world, in case you don't read manga, where they do journey to another world. And it becomes a seek and rescue type of mission. And you can find out who they're trying to rescue, what they're trying to do in this world where other genies are, and what role she plays in all of this, and who she really is, because she does have a little bit of a secret. Absolutely love this one. This is one for all ages if you're a fan of books like Amulet or Bone. It's got definitely that art style. In the back, there are some early concept... Yeah, here we go. This is some early concept sketches or ideas for the book. I love how different she looked then. Some of these characters didn't make it to the end of the book, but... No, wait, that sounds wrong. This is a happy book. Some of the concept sketches of the characters, those characters did not make it to the end product. That's what I meant to say. Whew, I don't want anybody running away going, what? Some of these characters died? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I really hope that there's more of this, and it's crazy. Let me just show you again some of this beautiful colored artwork. It's just great. And again, I just want to give credit where credit is due. Jeff Victor did everything here. This is his first graphic novel, and it was awesome. I loved it, and I want more of these two characters. Like, that little character, Griblet, perfect. And a couple of other surprises in here that will keep you reading. Ashes, a comic by Alvaro Ortiz. And this is another one that's soft cover. It's got the French flaps here. And printed in this thick matte paper. Every time I do this with Dark Horse or Marvel Comics, every week that I do with Marvel Comics, I always give my book, one book, a seal of approval. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you're looking for that here, no. Every one of these books was different and charming enough that I ended up enjoying some more than others, obviously. This is no exception. This was wonderful, sad, beautiful, and had that sense of adventure that I really like. So the basic premise of this is about Polly. I love the way that you meet the characters. And the next character is Moho. So you get to know the characters just a little bit, like their childhood and how they became friends. And the last character you're going to meet is Peter. All three of these friends have known each other for years, but they haven't really seen each other. They haven't kept up. Sadly, what brings them together is their friend Hector's death and his last wishes of what to do with his ashes. Cenizas. It might have been printed in Spanish. I'm not really sure. But this is the graphic novel debut here in America of Alvaro Ortiz. So it is a road trip with all kinds of hijinks as to what happens. Like, there is a monkey here. There are car chases. There's bounty hunters. And look how many panels you get in some of these pages. It's amazing. This one here, probably older teen, 184 pages, and retailing for $19.99. I love this because it's a mix of magical adventure, hijinks, and yes, a road trip about the last wish of your friend and what he wanted done with his ashes. So they have to carry it through. But in here, they're going to find a little bit more about themselves and why they stopped talking to each other, why they haven't seen each other for years. And it does remind me of some of the crazy road trips I used to take. Okay, our crazy road trips when I was younger had a lot more alcohol and less banjo playing villains coming after us. And monkeys. I don't think we had any monkeys. Or maybe we did. I don't remember. But beautiful story. There are 7 days in total, and there's always like these little things. Actually, day 1 isn't really the full day since it doesn't start until the afternoon. And you do get to know the characters from the very beginning, but through a series of flashbacks, you get to find out exactly what happened to their friendship and how Hector played a part in their past. And that is Ashes. Bottled by Chris Gooch. Again, this was the very first book that I read by him, and I found out that he's Australian, and I read 4 books by him. Bottled, again by Chris Gooch, and this is the first book that I mentioned I read by him, and I found out through here that he's an Australian graphic novel maker. So, in this book, this one is probably mature themes just because of some of the content that you're going to be seeing in here. So, this is the story of Jane, and who lives this mundane life. As a matter of fact, that's part of what the story is, and her boyfriend Ben, who's kind of boring, and she just wants to get out. Like, she wants to get away from everybody. She's tired of her stepfather just verbally abusing her poor mother. And it's about connections between family and friends, and I guess your boyfriend. So what ends up happening is she finds an apartment where she can move into. However, she needs to put a down payment, and it's a lot of money, and she needs to pay rent in advance. So there's no way she can afford it. Out of nowhere, her friend Natalie, who's made a name for herself, as a matter of fact, she's a fashion model in Japan. She ends up returning back to her town on a business trip. And, well, she ends up partying with Jane. And what ends up happening is that Jane tries to blackmail her into giving her money so that Jane can get the heck out of this mundane life that she lives. And it becomes an interesting story where I didn't expect it to go where it was gonna go, because it gets a little bit dark. As a matter of fact, this was, I think in the back of the book, it was called Millennial Noir, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere I read it was Millennial Noir. Maybe it's in one of the flaps. Sure, if that's a thing, then yeah, I guess this is a millennial noir story. I find it really interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Chris Ware's kind of stories. But this was the first book I read, but it's the second book on this video, and that is Bottled by Chris Gooch. Funny Things. This is a comic strip biography of Charles M. Schulz by Luca Debut and Francesco Matteusi. Now, this is one of the books you've probably seen on the channel. I think last year. This is a landscape book, very similar to Fantagraphics' Peanuts collection. And it is done, let me zoom out just a little bit here, in a landscape format. But not only that, a comic strip format. With just a few panels telling some of the story. And it's wonderful. This one is $39.99 and it has 440 pages. And it is the life of Charles Schulz. Now, some of it at the very beginning, they tell you a little bit about the notes here. As to some of them are just accounts of what people told them. It is, again, a biography based on interviews. And as a matter of fact, I believe all the way in the back, they do give you... yeah, right here, the footnotes and acknowledgments to let you know where a lot of these stories came from. Starting off as a young boy, Sparky, reading the funnies with his dad before he could read, and going back from color. I love the fact that they use color too. Kind of reminds me of like the Sundays. But it is done mostly in this black and white. I say mostly, and it's like 50-50 so far. There we go. Mostly in this black and white format. And you will see Charles Schulz get older, and you'll start seeing him experience some things I didn't even know about, that he was suffering from, like anxiety and things like that, which I guess it makes kind of sense. I know, as much as I love Peanuts and having gone to like the Peanuts Museum, like the man himself, I really don't know much about. It is really cool that you see the life, I guess this is kind of like the life and times of Charles M. Schulz, and how he was determined to become a cartoonist. You see him during World War II. And then, of course, you see the inspiration for a lot of the characters, including Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And then, of course, the rest of the Peanuts gang. It's wonderful if you are a fan of Peanuts. Like, this is a nice addition to have up there with the Peanuts collections. It's done in this widescreen format, the landscape format, if you will. And very beautifully it is illustrated. And I love the fact that it does it in the style of, the black and white. You have like 6 days of black and white, and then like the 3-column Sundays in color, which is awesome. Love that. So if you're a fan of him and you want to know a little bit more about him, check this out. My buddy Ray actually gifted me this book 2 years ago, I think, and I read it cover to cover on Christmas Day. Loved it. It is a hardcover too. Radical, My Year with a Socialist Senator. This is by Sophia Warren, and it is another soft cover with the flaps right here. This one's really interesting because much like Funny Things, Sophia starts it off with like some of the stories based on interviews. Some of them she was there, but she had to change a little bit of the dialogue, which happens a lot, right? So this one has 328 pages and is $24.99. What I liked about this is the fact that she's able to, because there's a lot of characters here. She's able to break down who these characters are. They all look a little bit different too, so that's nice. All right, so this is the story of Julia Salazar, who is a 27-year-old Democrat socialist running for state senate. And this is what happens when she wins. And Sophia, who ends up spending a year with her, because I like the way it starts too. It's like, she says, I wrote this book because she would not stop following me. And there's a little bit of a twist there. This is where she explains how she changed just a couple things, reconstructed rather, but because of the posters are just everywhere in her neighborhood. And then finally voting day. But it is getting to know the character of Julia, or Julia, and also the character of Sophia and who she is, and what all these victories entail, and how difficult it is to pass laws, and also making changes, how much easier it looks on paper, but when you're actually trying to make some changes, it's just not that easy. It never is. So it's really cool to see just, the graphic novel creator following the senator, and it also explains how our government works too, in case you're not familiar with U.S. government. But I knew nothing about Julia Salazar, nor about the DSA or the tenant laws. So I did learn a few things through here, which I guess is the beauty of graphic novels. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking about one of the most important ones here in a little bit. But that is the beauty of graphic novels, is that you are able to learn in this literature graphic format. And I love that about these books, right? I think some of the most important books to me are graphic novels. But this is what the artwork looks like. Most of these are in black and white. I just, for some reason, didn't even notice that. In the back, there are, of course, resources and further reading and studies, and of course the acknowledgments. Gotta have those notes. Gotta show your work. Under Earth. Man, if I had a seal of approval for this, breaking my own rule. No, March is in there, so it's completely unfair. Alright, this one I really enjoyed. Under Earth is another one by Chris Gooch. This one is different, though. This is a story that centers around the idea that there is a landfill under Earth, so it's a subterranean landfill, where people go and serve out their prison sentences. So in here, they are dropped in this landfill and just supposed to live there for the rest of their lives. This one has 571 pages and retails for $29.99. So it is a story that's broken down into two different stories. So you have the story of Malcolm and Reese, which we'll get to in a little bit, and then you have the story of Zoe and Elle. And they're two different stories that will connect through here. So in this future, There's a lot of like debris from the past, like things that made absolutely no sense why anybody would own. But then there's interesting things, like there's an iPod in here, which becomes an important part at the very beginning. There's handheld systems, but then there's like old cars and things like that. So the prisoners are just supposed to live there. So again, you have the characters of Reese and Malcolm, and the other parallel story is the story of Zoe and of Elle. So immediately, they don't know each other, right? Like, Malcolm and Reese don't know each other, but they bond over a journal that Malcolm ends up sharing with Reese. And it gets them closer and closer together. And it's like one is taking care of the other. And it's a nice bond that they have. The other story is about trying to break out of this place, like getting out of this prison and leaving it behind. But how is it all connected? I love this one. I know it's 571 pages, but it absolutely took me no time to read it. This one, older teen. I don't know if they give the ratings back here. They do not. But I would say teen or older teen would be okay with this. Yeah, Chris Cooch, man, he's on my radar now. It's some solid stuff he's doing. And now has come to be that part of the video where we look at all of the spines of these particular books. And of course, the spine of March, that is the back of the slipcase, but the spines of each individual book is right here. All right, let's continue with the overview. In Perpetuity. Now, if you watch my upcoming collected editions every month, you know this book gave me some problems. No. If you're on Patreon and you watch my behind the scenes, you know this book gave me problems, not because of the story or anything. I had no idea what it was about. Just saying it. I was like, how do you... In Perpetuity. This is a soft cover. It is printed in this thick, glossy paper. It does have French flaps. And this is by Peter and Maria Hoey. And man, this is another one that is solid. It's done in this landscape format. So the basic premise behind this is that we do meet this character named Jim. And, he's working this Monday job, like just as a gas station attendant. He goes home, he clocks out, goes home. It's like a business. But you find out that this is the actual afterlife. It's just mundane. That's what happens. It is time stands still, in perpetuity, if you will, and you have nowhere to go. So Jim just does this thing over and over. Does the same job, gets yelled at by the same people, goes home, starts over. Everything changes when these guys show up and they come and collect the debt. And they're telling him that they've tracked him down because he has the ability to go back to the real world. So you have the afterlife, AL, and LA. Nice, right? So this is where we meet Olivia. So let's actually get to Olivia, who has a near-death experience where she is just walking out in sunny California and LA and falls, and yeah, she becomes a ghost. So this is where the two of them meet. And she's on the brink of death, but two of them make a connection. So now Jim has a purpose to keep coming back. So it makes for a really interesting story. I had no idea. I love going into these type of books completely blind. This one definitely has like older teen vibes. The artwork is just awesome. I love it. I want to make sure I am crediting the right Peter and Maria Hoey. I don't know which one the artist. Maybe they both draw it. I love the sequential art. It's easy to follow. The story itself is easy to follow. Some pages can be a little bit dialogue heavy. But we're going to look at another book that just blows all the dialogue heaviness out of the water. I'll show you. You'll know which one it is when we're looking at it. But this one was great. I loved it. I could kind of see this working as a TV show too. I hate saying that because I love graphic novels and they should stay in graphic novel formats. A surreal smuggling operation across the boundaries of life and death. Very nice. I liked it. Did that sound like Borat saying that? I didn't mean to. I just literally meant this is a very nice story. Lisa Cheese and Ghost Guitar Attack of the Snack by Kevin Alger. And out of all the books here, this one definitely has the indie feel to it. This book has 164 pages and retails for $19.99. It is a softcover with French flaps there and printed in this thick matte paper. And you'll see with the artwork and when I explain a little bit of the story, how it has that indie flair and completely on purpose, and it makes perfect sense. So you meet the character of Lisa Cheese, who has this robotic arm, and she just wanted to come to Earth from another dimension to kind of live a life and become a folk singer. However, she didn't. And let's just say her parents in her other dimension are very unhappy with her because she just ends up working this mundane job as a secretary, or it's like just like a normal office job. So there are superhero elements in this story because there's a whole backstory going on. There's Ghost Guitar right there, and it makes for a really interesting read. Like at first I was a little lost and I didn't know exactly what to make of it. But just how obscure and ridiculous some of the characters are and some of the storylines are, yeah, I dug it. It was great. I love the colors, too. I really liked her as a character because she's not perfect, right? Like, she's got a lot of flaws, and it doesn't look like it's that deep, but I promise it is. The villains are awesome. And, oh my gosh, is it the food chains? Yeah, the whole food chains thing going on. This is her auntie right there. In the other dimension, it's just ridiculous. Like, things I wasn't expecting. Not so much extras in the back, but that is Lisa Cheese and the Ghost Guitar Attack of Snack. In Utero. This one came out this year. This is by Chris Gooch again. This is one of the bigger books that he did. Compared to the other ones, but another one of the soft covers with the French flaps right here. And this one is also different than the previous ones. This is all set in, I guess, 12 years into the future. Because there is an atomic bomb that is dropped at the very beginning of the story. And we meet these two characters that they're seeing them, mom and daughter, and boom! 12 years later. Alright, so what happens 12 years later? Well, it looks like in this city, I can assume maybe this is Australia. Oh, no, they do mention it. So this is in Australia. They are rebuilding everything on ground zero. However, something is going on underneath the city. So what ends up happening here is we meet the character of Haley. And Haley's being dropped off at this camp. It's like a summer camp. By her mom. In this summer camp, she ends up not really getting along with the rest of the kids, but she ends up meeting this older kid right here, and this is Jen. And Jen is a very interesting character because I think she has a couple of secrets. I don't want to reveal what they are, but the basic premise of this is that underneath, it's like under Earth, a little bit, underneath this big shopping mall where the school is taking place or the summer program's taking place, there are giant monsters that were awakened by this bomb that went off. Or did the bomb create the monsters? So that's exactly what this is. This is a whole mystery as to how even the character of Jen is connected to these monsters and how Haley is connected to them too. So they both are wandering around the grounds looking for other escapees from the center since they don't want to be there. And then you also have this other story too about scientists trying to figure out exactly what is causing this ruckus, what's causing this shaking from under the earth. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Lovecraft story, maybe a little bit of like Stephen King. No, Lovecraft, not Stephen King. Yeah, totally Lovecraft. We're talking about what's in the middle of the earth, but it makes for an interesting read. Very limited color tones too, which I really appreciate him using. I don't want to show exactly what the big reveal is or what these creatures look like because I really like the designs of them and I want people to be genuinely surprised. But I did want to show you a little bit of the artwork and throw a little bit of the mystery in there. Mary Tyler MooreHawk by Dave Baker. Okay, remember when I said that in Perpetua had some dialogue in there? Yeah, nothing like this. Love the end sheets here. This is a hardcover, by the way. And that's what the design looks like. This book, out of all the books here, is the most meta book. It knows what it is, especially when you find out who the characters are in here. And you see who wrote the book. So there are a lot of prose parts in here. You're going to see a lot of just words and paragraphs. And if that stuff kind of scares you, well, just be prepared to do a lot of reading. The basic premise of this book right here is broken down into two different sections. And it's not until you get to the prose section that you start finding out exactly what's happening. I love the artwork through here. It looks like it's printed in this weathered type of paper stock right here. It's just thick matte paper. And it's not just like prose too. There's like articles in here from this maybe other universe. There's like ads in here. And then of course the comic. But the comic just throws you into the middle of the story. It's not until you get to the prose part that you find out, oh, this story's all set in the future. And it is all about how in the future it's illegal to own like physical things. And it's all done through here, through all these secret files. And how there was a TV show, like a TV studio, that helped people escape because they were trying to be demolished by the government or whoever ran it. And there were loopholes as to how people could keep watching these TV shows. But what ends up happening is you find out that one of the TV shows was the show called Mary Tyler MooreHawk. And it was an early program that was broadcast as like the beginning of these broadcast stations. It's a fantasy adventure starring this young lady right here that's kind of like in the middle of all these things. And there's a robot, it's her brother. And this one took me a long time to read. I have had these books for 2 months now, and I finally just finished reading this book today. The other ones, I would take a break. This one, I will give you my honest opinion. If you're going to read this one, it's okay to take breaks in between. Read a few pages, and then move on. It is worth reading, though. It is phenomenal how much you're sucked into the lore of all this. Because there is that mystery. And like I said, Dave Baker writing himself into this just adds another layer of like, what the heck is going on? I like this a lot. This was great. There's a lot of history in here and a lot of world building, but you have to prepare yourself to do some reading. And sometimes you do have to go back a couple times to figure out, oh, that's what that scene meant. Got it. Okay. But this is Mary Tyler MooreHawk. Last but certainly not least is the March Slipcase edition, National Book Award winner. These particular graphic novels are some of the most important books to be released in graphic novel format. As a matter of fact, whenever we did the top 10 graphic novels that belong in every library, every one of us that were on that panel voted for this book unanimously. And not really the book, but it is a trilogy. So this does come in a slipcase edition. The slipcase is $49.99. And then there's also the trade paperback editions. So this is what all of the covers look like. And then the backs of the books. So let's take a quick look at each one of these, starting with March, Book 1. All right, let's go ahead and open Book 1 really quick, and we'll look at the other two. And there he is, John Lewis, who we lost a couple of years ago. And it is really interesting to see a book like this because it is written by John Lewis and Andrew Aden and Nate Powell doing the artwork. So you have him writing these stories about the early days of the civil rights movement and before they even knew what it was, just like the human rights. And it is a powerful graphic novel. Like, there are things you've probably learned in school, but to see the firsthand accounts starting in his early life, like when he was in the family farm and oh my gosh, and the way that he treated the chickens like they were individuals. It was just an amazing build up to what happens later on. And if you don't know anything about John Lewis, he was a big part of American history and the whole civil rights movement. And it's interesting because it does bring it back to modern day too, with the whole inauguration of Barack Obama. But the story really follows a young John Lewis who comes from a farming background and then rising into this leader role that he has, which I'm sure a lot of us probably know because of school. And there are a lot of footnotes and acknowledgments here, but it is a first-hand account by John Lewis himself. The second book, a little bit thicker. In the first book, I think he was about 23. In this book, he's 20, maybe he's 23 in this one. It's just crazy to think of John Lewis being that young. But let me show you where this begins. So I believe this is the whole freedom rides, if I'm not mistaken, in Boynton versus Virginia. So we go through different eras of his life, how they were outlawing segregation and racial discrimination on buses. And there were a lot of things I knew about, right? Because of school, like Rosa Parks and all that, and doing book reports. But I didn't realize how long the protests were and how long the marches were. And the whole thing about the peaceful marches. It's a beautiful story. And the sad thing is that a lot of this stuff happened. A lot of the stuff in here happened. Like, it's crazy how this happened in the 60s. Like, when you say 1960, to me, it still doesn't feel like it wasn't that long ago. I mean, somebody's grandparents or even parents lived through a lot of this. It's insane. But a lot of American history is shared in these books. And then the third one, which is the big, thick one here, this is the one, I believe is when he was around 25 years old. And there's your flaps again. To the past and future children of movement. So, this is the last book in the March trilogy. And again, it is all John Lewis's memoirs of the civil right and going through real life things like the voting rights, like giving people the right to vote, and the horrible things that happen. Like towards the end of that book, I hate saying spoiling like it's a fictional story, because that garbage that happened in real life to innocent people. But I think it's more important when you read it if you don't know anything about that particular time in American history. It's a very much like the book Mouse and all that. It's it's really a biography of John Lewis and just this different era as he becomes one of these civil rights leaders and the whole peaceful march that they started. And that's how they decided to fight against violence, which just makes it a really powerful and moving, inspirational story that no words I'm saying can do it justice. But the artwork looks like this. It's wonderful artwork here by Nate Powell. And that is the third book. And again, yes, these 3 books were voted to be put in every library. So that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you are interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the page count and content of each of these particular books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you've read, which ones you've never heard of, which ones piqued your interest, and if you have read any of these, what your favorite one was. Any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.